Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a massive step forward in our exploration of the wizarding world. We are dusting off the third installment of J.K. Rowling's series, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And I have to say, looking at the stack of notes we have here, this one just feels different.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the first two books were mysteries, sure, but they had this, I don't know, this colorful, slightly safer vibe. You had the candy, the flying, the enchanted castle, but this one feels like the lights just went out.
That is the perfect way to describe it. If the first two books were about the joy of discovering magic, this book is really where the magic grows up. It is the pivot point of the entire saga.
Yeah.
We are moving from what was essentially a children's adventure into a full-on psychological thriller.
Yeah, it gets heavy.
Really heavy. The themes shift drastically. For you listening, this is where we start dealing with the complexity of truth versus perception, the nature of fear itself, and the really unsettling realization that the adults in the room, they don't always have the answers. Our mission today is to unpack all of that. We are going to look at the lore of the Marauders, the mechanics of time turners, and the psychological weight of the Dementors.
It is a massive shift, and it starts right from the title, right? The Prisoner of Azkaban. We have heard whispers of Azkaban before, but this is the first time it is front and center.
Exactly. And the prisoner in question is Sirius Black. Now, usually in these stories, the villain is Voldemort or some direct agent of Voldemort. But here, the antagonist is a man who has done something that the entire wizarding world considered impossible. He escaped the high-security wizard prison.
Which is supposed to be inescapable.
And completely. And so our goal for this deep dive is to understand not just how he did it, but why his escape triggers such a specific visceral panic in the magical world.
It's a lot to unpack. But let's start where the source material starts. We are back at number 4, Privet Drive, and Harry is, well, he's 13 now.
He is 13, and he is angry. That is a crucial distinction from the previous summers. He's not just sad or lonely anymore. He is fed up, he has hit puberty, and the teenage angst is very real.
I really love the detail about what he is doing when we first see him. He is under the covers with a flashlight, writing an essay for school. What was the exact topic again?
Right, it was that witch burning in the 14th century was completely pointless.
Yes, because the witches would just use a flame-freezing charm and pretend to scream while actually just enjoying a gentle tickling sensation.
It is a funny detail, but it's also incredibly telling. Think about it. Harry is writing about persecution. He is writing about wizards being misunderstood and hunted by muggles, while he is literally hiding under a blanket to avoid being persecuted by the Dursleys, who are muggles.
Oh, wow. I never thought about that parallel.
It perfectly mirrors his reality. He is completely cut off. His friends haven't called, mostly because Ron shouted down the telephone line at Uncle Vernon earlier in the summer. So Harry just feels like a total pariah in his own home.
And just when you think it really can't get any worse for him, enter Aunt Marge. Now, we have dealt with Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia for a while. They are neglectful, they're mean. But Marge feels malicious in a different way.
Marge is a bully, plain and simple. She is Vernon's sister, so she's not actually a blood relative to Harry, yet she forces this weird power dynamic where he has to call her aunt. But you were right, her cruelty is very specific. She doesn't just attack Harry's living situation. She attacks his core identity. She attacks his lineage.
Yeah, she breeds dogs, right?
She is a dog breeder, and she uses that exact language to describe human beings. He talks about bad blood and runts.
That is just so nasty.
It's eugenics language, frankly. She implies that Harry's quote-unquote badness comes genetically from his parents. She calls his mother a bad egg and claims his father was a lazy, unemployed drunk who died in a car crash.
And that is the trigger, isn't it? Harry can handle being starved or locked in a cupboard, sadly, because he's used to it, but insults to his parents, that is the absolute line.
It is the defense of memory. You have to remember, Harry has almost no actual memory of them, so he defends the idea of them ferociously. And this leads to the big incident. He loses control. It is a burst of accidental magic fueled by pure, unadulterated rage.
He blows her up, literally inflates her like a giant balloon.
Which is this absurd, almost Roald Dahl-esque image.
Yes.
She is floating around near the ceiling, bobbing around. But the aftermath isn't funny for Harry at all. The adrenaline fades, and he realizes he has broken the international statute of secrecy.
He used underage magic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in his mind, this is it. Game over. He's going to be expelled from Hogwarts. He's going to be arrested by the Ministry.
So he does what any terrified 13-year-old would do in that situation. He packs his heavy trunk and runs away into the dark. And this scene really struck me. He is dragging this massive trunk down a completely dark street, jumping at shadows, expecting the police, or worse. He is totally isolated.
He expects to be a literal outlaw. And that vulnerability, that specific stranded feeling, is what actually summons the night bus.
The night bus. Emergency transport for the stranded witch or wizard. This has to be one of my favorite inventions in the entire series. It just bangs out of thin air into existence.
It is the Wizarding world's safety net. But notice the dramatic contrast here. Harry is living a noir thriller right now. He's on dark streets, running from the law. And then the night bus arrives, and it is pure chaos comedy. Beds are sliding around, a chandelier is swinging from the ceiling, and we meet the conductor, Stan Shunpike, and the driver, Ernie Prang.
Stan is great. He is sort of the man-on-the-street perspective for the Wizarding world, isn't he?
Precisely. Stan isn't a ministry official or a teacher. He is just a guy who loves gossip. And through him, Harry and you, the listener, learn the public narrative about Sirius Black. Harry actually sees the front page of the Daily Prophet that Stan is reading.
Right, the moving picture, the sunken face, the matted hair. Black looks completely unhinged, like a zombie.
He looks like a monster. And Stan drops the backstory that terrifyingly clarifies the stakes for this year. Everyone knows Black was a big supporter of you-know-who, but the specific crime that put him in Azkaban, Stan says Black killed 13 people with a single curse.
One curse. 13 people dead.
Just think about the sheer magical power that implies. We have seen wizard duels before. Usually it is one spell, one target. To wipe out an entire street, leaving a crater so deep it cracked the sewer pipes, killing 12 muggles and one wizard instantly, that is weapon of mass destruction level magic.
And the wizard who died was Peter Pettigrew, right? The hero who tried to stop him.
That is the official story. Pettigrew chased Black down, cornered him in a crowded muggle street, and Black just laughed and blew everything to pieces. All that was left of Pettigrew was a single blood-stained finger.
God, that is so grim. So Harry is sitting on this bus, realizing that this absolute nuclear bomb of a wizard has escaped the inescapable prison. And he's out there. And when Harry finally gets to the leaky cauldron, he bumps into the Minister of Magic himself, Cornelius Fudge.
And this is where the political intrigue of the series starts to really bleed in. Harry is bracing for expulsion. He is physically shaking. And Fudge just gives him ice cream.
Yeah, what is that about? Fudge is basically like, oh, you blew up your aunt. No big deal. These things happen. Here is a private room. Why is the Minister of Magic acting like a kindly, indulgent uncle?
It is pure panic masquerading as benevolence. You have to look at it from Fudge's political perspective. Sirius Black is loose. The Ministry assumes Black is trying to finish the job he started 12 years ago, which is killing Harry Potter. The absolute last thing Fudge wants is for the boy who lived to be wandering around Muggle London completely unprotected.
Because if Harry dies on Fudge's watch, Fudge's career is totally over.
Exactly. So he is essentially grounding him under the guise of a favor. He parks Harry in Diagon Alley, where he can be watched constantly by shopkeepers and ministry officials. He treats Harry like a fragile political asset. He says, don't go wandering, Harry. Stay where it's safe.
But Harry, being Harry, actually enjoys the freedom. He spends weeks eating sundaes, doing his homework in the sun, and staring at the firebolt in the broom shop window.
The firebolt. The state-of-the-art international standard racing broom. It really represents freedom, flight, and power. Everything Harry currently doesn't have because he is effectively trapped in this alley by the fear of Sirius Black.
So the summer ends. He meets up with Ron and Hermione, and they get on the Hogwarts Express. And this is where the tone shift we talked about becomes undeniable. The train just stops in the middle of nowhere. The rain is lashing down, the lights go out completely, and something boards the train.
The Dementors. Now, we really need to pause here and analyze what the author's doing. In the previous books, monsters were entirely physical threats. A mountain troll, a giant snake, a swarm of spiders. They could bite you, they could crush you, they could poison you. The Dementor is a psychological threat.
Describe them for us, because the way they look is awful, but the way they make you feel is so much worse.
Physically, they are tall, cloaked, rotting figures. The text describes the hand protruding from the cloak as glistening, grayish, slimy, and scabbed, like something dead that has decayed in water. But their primary weapon isn't claws or teeth. It is an aura.
The cold. It's an unnatural freezing cold.
An aggressive cold. When a Dementor is near, all happiness is forcibly drained from the environment. You don't just feel sad, you lose the actual physiological ability to feel happy. You are left alone with your absolute worst memories.
And for Harry, his worst memory is significantly worse than, say, Ron's.
Exactly. Ron might remember a giant spider or a really embarrassing moment with his brothers. Harry hears his mother screaming. He hears the exact moment of her murder. He hears Voldemort's high, cold laugh.
That's intense.
It's fascinating that the Dementor forces Harry to relive a pre-verbal memory. He was just a baby when it happened. He doesn't consciously remember it, but the trauma is stored deeply in his body, and the Dementor drags it forcefully to the surface.
That is horrifying. You have a 13-year-old kid passing out on a train because he is vividly reliving his parents' execution.
It is an overload of trauma. His brain just shuts down. But this scene also gives us the introduction of a critical new character, the man sleeping in the corner of their train compartment.
Professor R.J. Lippin, the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher.
The visual contrast is key here. He looks incredibly shabby. His robes are patched and frayed. He looks ill and gray and exhausted. The kids actually think he's a bit pathetic at first glance. But when the Dementor attacks, Lupin wakes up and handles the situation instantly.
He shoots some kind of silver stuff at it from his wand, right?
He doesn't cast a fully corporeal Patronus yet, but he projects a silvery shadow that effectively repels the Dementor and pushes it out of the compartment. And then he pulls the most Lupin move of all. He breaks off a giant slab of chocolate and hands it to Harry.
He says, "Eat, you'll feel better." Is that an actual magical remedy? Or just, chocolate being chocolate?
It is a bit of both. Physiologically, we know chocolate releases endorphins. It combats the physical shock. But in the magical world, it is the acknowledged, prescribed antidote to the Dementor's chill. It grounds you. It brings you back to the physical world of sensory pleasure after being dragged into the psychological void.
So the train finally gets to Hogwarts, and we learn that these Dementors are actually stationed at the school. They are the guards looking for Sirius Black, which just seems insane to put around children.
It is a total police state tactic. The Ministry is so terrified of Black that they have surrounded a school with soul-sucking demons. Dumbledore is absolutely furious about it. He warns the students very clearly during the feast. He says, Dementors are not to be fooled by tricks or disguises. A Dementor does not rely on sight.
Because they sense emotion.
They feed on it. They navigate by sensing positive emotion and consuming it. And Lupin explains their ultimate threat later in the story. The Dementor's kiss.
Which is definitely not romantic in any way.
Far from it. When a Dementor performs the kiss, they clamp their jaws over the victim's mouth and literally suck out the soul. The body lives on, the heart beats, the lungs breathe, but the you is gone forever. It is an empty shell. The author has been very open that Dementors are a direct metaphor for severe clinical depression. The kiss is the total, irreversible destruction of the self.
Heavy stuff for a boarding school. But Lupin brings a totally different energy to the classroom to combat this. We really have to talk about his first lesson, the Boggart class. This is widely considered one of the best scenes in the whole series.
It is pedagogy at its absolute finest. Lupin takes a highly practical, hands-on approach. He introduces the class to a Boggart, which is a shapeshifter that hides in dark, enclosed spaces and takes the form of whatever the viewer fears most.
So for Neville Longbottom, it turns into Professor Snape, which says a whole lot about Snape's teaching methods, honestly.
It really does. It's sad that a teacher is a child's greatest fear. But Lupin uses this to empower Neville. He tells him to visualize Snape wearing Neville's grandmother's clothes, the tall hat with the stuffed vulture, the red handbag. The spell they use is ridiculous. The mechanic here is fascinating. The spell itself doesn't destroy the Boggart. Laughter destroys the Boggart. The spell just forces the creature into a shape that makes laughter possible.
It is conquering fear by stripping away its power, by making the terrifying thing absurd.
Precisely. You disarm the fear. But when the line moves up and it gets to Harry, Lupin suddenly jumps in. He physically steps between Harry and the wardrobe.
Why does he do that? Did he think Harry was going to screw up the spell?
Not at all. He thought the Boggart would instantly turn into Lord Voldemort. He didn't want the Dark Lord materializing in the middle of a classroom full of 13-year-olds causing mass panic. It was a purely protective instinct on Lupin's part.
But later, Harry tells him, I wasn't thinking of Voldemort, I was thinking of the Dementor.
And Lupin's response to that is basically the thematic thesis of the entire book. He says, that suggests that what you fear most of all is fear. Very wise, Harry.
Fear itself. We have nothing to fear but fear itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
It shows Harry's incredible emotional maturity. He's not afraid of a physical person or a monster anymore. He is afraid of the absolute state of despair. He is afraid of losing his mind and his soul.
While Harry is battling these internal demons, The actual plot is thickening around him. We have the Hogsmeade weekends introduced. The third years get to visit the all-wizard village on certain weekends. But Harry didn't get his permission slip signed because his uncle is a total jerk.
So he is left behind at the castle. He is the outcast once again, watching his friends leave. But this isolation leads to the intervention of Fred and George Weasley. They see Harry moping around, and they decide to bestow upon him a family legacy item, the Marauder's map.
I absolutely love the map. Messrs. Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs.
It is an absolute masterpiece of magical invention. It maps out the entire grounds and tracks every single person in the castle as a moving labeled dot. It shows secret passages that even the caretaker doesn't know about. But it also has a distinct, sassy personality. We see this later when Snape catches Harry with what looks like a piece of blank parchment and tries to force it to reveal its secrets.
And the map literally insults him in writing. It says, Mr. Prongs presents his compliments to Professor Snape and requests that he keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business.
It is hilarious.
Yeah.
But if you pay attention to the names Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, Prongs, these are the creators. And they clearly harbored a deep personal hatred for Snape. The map is a little slice of their soul, or at least their rebellious teenage attitude, preserved in magical ink.
So Harry uses one of the map's secret passages to sneak into Hogsmeade. He meets up with Ron and Hermione, and he is hiding under his invisibility cloak. They end up in the Three Broomsticks Inn. And this is where the massive exposition dump happens. But it is such a riveting scene. He overhears Professor McGonagall, Hagrid, Professor Flitwick, and Minister Fudge talking at the table next to him.
This is the exact moment the narrative crystallizes. Up until now, Harry just knew Sirius Black was a bad guy who supported Voldemort. Here, listening under the table, he learns the devastating personal betrayal. The teachers explain the Fidelius charm.
Can we break that down? Because the mechanics of the Fidelius charm are really important here for understanding the betrayal.
It is crucial. The Fidelius charm is a highly complex spell used to conceal a secret magically inside a single living soul. The secret in this case was the physical location of the Potter's house. As long as the secret keeper, the person holding the secret, doesn't voluntarily divulge it, Voldemort could press his nose against the Potter's living room window and still not see them. It is the ultimate magical protection.
And the public narrative is that Sirius Black was the secret keeper.
Right. James Potter told Dumbledore that he wanted Sirius, his best friend, his best man at his wedding, to be the keeper. Dumbledore actually offered to do it himself because he suspected someone in their circle was a traitor, but James stubbornly insisted on using Sirius.
And then, barely a week after they cast the charm, the Potters are dead.
The conclusion is inescapable to everyone. Sirius talked. He sold them out to Voldemort. And not only that, but we learned he was named Harry's godfather.
That is the twist that really hurts. He wasn't just a casual friend. He was chosen family. He was designated as Harry's guardian if anything happened to James and Lily.
So you have Harry sitting invisibly under a table, listening to these adults discuss how this man who should have been a father figure to him stepped right over James and Lily's dead bodies to serve the dark wizard who killed them. The rage Harry feels at this moment is totally justified. The shift in his character is instantaneous. He stops fearing Sirius Black and actively starts wanting to kill him.
He says later he was their friend. It's the betrayal of trust that stings so much more than the threat of violence.
Meanwhile, the atmosphere of doom just keeps building. We have the omens introduced. Professor Trelawney, the new divination teacher.
Yeah.
Now, she is a bit of a hack, right?
She is very theatrical. Lots of misty, perfumed rooms and reading tea leaves. She constantly predicts that Harry is going to die a horrible death.
She sees the Grim in his teacup, a giant spectral black dog that haunts churchyards. It's known as the worst omen of death in the wizarding world. And the really scary part for Harry is that he keeps actually seeing a large black dog in real life. He saw one when he left the Dursleys on Magnolia Crescent. He sees one lurking in the stands at the Quidditch match.
Oh, the Quidditch match against Hufflepuff. That is a total disaster.
It is a nightmare. The Dementors, who are strictly supposed to stay at the gates of the school, get hungry. They invade the stadium because the stadium is full of excited, happy people. Hundreds of them swarm the pitch. Harry is high up in the air chasing the snitch, and he gets surrounded by them. He hears his mother screaming again, passes out entirely, and falls from the sky.
Dumbledore manages to cast a spell to slow his fall, saving his life. But his broom...
The Nimbus 2000. It blows away in the storm and crashes straight into the Whomping Willow. It gets completely splintered. This is highly symbolic. His childhood freedom, his joy of flying, is completely shattered. The Dementors have successfully taken the one place he truly felt safe and powerful, the air.
So Harry realizes he can't just rely on luck anymore. He goes to Lupin. He says, I need you to teach me how to fight them.
And we get the Patronus lessons. This is incredibly advanced magic, way beyond what a third year should be doing. The incantation is Expecto Patronum.
Which means I expect a guardian.
Yes. But the fuel for the spell is what makes it unique. It is not driven by rage or raw power or just concentration. It is fueled by a memory, a single, profoundly powerful, happy memory.
And Harry really struggles to find one.
Of course he does. Look at his life. He is an orphan raised in a cupboard under the stairs by abusive relatives. He doesn't have a deep catalog of joy to draw from. And as he tragically admits to Lupin during the lessons, a dark part of him actually wants to hear the Dementors, because hearing his mother scream is the literal only time he has ever heard her voice.
That is so heartbreaking. He has to consciously choose to silence his mother's voice in order to cast the spell and save his own life.
It is a profound psychological step. He has to let go of the trauma to function. He eventually settles on a memory that sort of works. It's not a fully formed traditional memory, but rather the feeling of finding out he was a wizard. The feeling of leaving the Dursleys and going to Hogwarts.
It's hope. He uses hope as his shield.
Exactly. Hope is his greatest weapon.
Now, while all this high-stakes life-or-death drama is happening, there is a very petty, very typical teenager subplot running in the background. Hermione's new cat, Crookshanks, versus Ron's old pet rat, Scabbers.
Oh, but it is not petty at all. It is the absolute key to the entire mystery. But the characters don't know that yet.
Right, to them it is just a mean cat constantly trying to eat a lazy rat. Crookshanks is relentless. He attacks Scabbers at every opportunity. Ron is furious about it. He and Hermione actually stop speaking to each other for months over this pet rivalry.
And Scabbers looks terrible. He is thinning out. He is losing fur in clumps. Ron blames the cat's attacks for stressing the rat out.
But looking back, as a deep dive expert who knows the ending, what is actually happening there?
Crookshanks is half Kneazle. A Kneazle is a highly intelligent magical feline that has an uncanny ability to detect suspicious or untrustworthy characters. Crookshanks knows Scabbers isn't a normal rat. He knows Scabbers is a fraud. And Scabbers isn't wasting away from feline-induced stress. He's wasting away from pure terror. He knows Sirius Black has broken out of Azkaban. He knows Black is specifically coming for him.
That completely recontextualizes everything. The cat is the best detective in the book.
The cat is arguably the most competent character in the story for the first half, honestly.
Fair point. So we reach the end of the school year. Exams are finally over. But there is one major depressing loose end. Buckbeak.
Hagrid's pet hippogriff. Earlier in the year, Draco Malfoy explicitly ignored Hagrid's instructions, provoked the proud creature, got his arm scratched, and then used his father's immense political influence at the Ministry to have the beast sentenced to death.
It's such an injustice. The Golden Trio goes down to Hagrid's hut to comfort him before the executioner arrives. While they are there, Hermione finds Scabbers hiding in a milk jug. He's alive, despite Ron thinking the cat had finally eaten him a few weeks prior, but they have to leave through the back door because the executioner, McNair, and the minister are arriving at the front.
They sneak out into the pumpkin patch. They hide behind the trees. They hear the swish and the heavy thud of the axe. They completely believe Buckbeak has just been beheaded. It is a massive low point, utter defeat.
And then the action just explodes. Scabbers panics, bites Ron's finger hard, and runs away. Ron chases him into the deepening shadows, and out of the darkness comes the massive black dog, the Grim.
It charges right at them. But the subversion here is key. It doesn't attack Harry, the assumed target. It bowls Harry over, grabs Ron by the leg, and drags him. It drags Ron, who is holding the rat, literally under the flailing roots of the Whomping Willow.
Harry and Hermione follow them down a hidden tunnel under the roots. They pop up on the other side and realize they are in the Shrieking Shack, the notoriously most haunted building in Britain, located just outside Hogsmeade.
And they run upstairs and find Ron on a bed, nursing a broken leg. But the dog is gone. Standing there in the shadows is Sirius Black. He is not a dog anymore. He is a man, emaciated, filthy, with a gaunt face, and he is holding Ron's wand.
This is the massive confrontation the whole book has been building toward. Harry doesn't run. He attacks him. It is a messy, desperate, physical brawl. Eventually, Harry pins him and has his wand pointed directly at Black's heart. He is entirely ready to become a killer to avenge his parents.
And then the door bursts open. It's Professor Lupin.
Lupin immediately disarms Harry. He looks at Black, and this is where the audience just gasps. He doesn't arrest the escaped convict. He lowers his wand and asks, "Where is he?" Sirius. And Sirius points at Ron. And then Lupin helps Black up and embraces him like a brother.
The betrayal Harry feels in this moment is doubled. The teacher he trusted most is hugging his parents' killer. Hermione totally loses it. She screams, "I trusted you." And then she drops the bomb. She yells, "He's a werewolf."
She figured it out.
She noticed the pattern all year. He is always sick during the full moon. His Bogart was a glowing orb, the moon. Snape assigned them an essay on werewolves specifically to hint at it. So now these 3 kids are trapped in a dilapidated room facing a convicted mass murderer and a revealed werewolf who seemingly have an alliance.
But Lupin desperately tries to explain. He actually hands the kids their wands back. That is a massive show of good faith. And we finally get the true story of the Marauders.
We learn that James, Sirius, and Peter realized Lupin was a werewolf during their second year at Hogwarts. But instead of shunning him or turning him in, they spent years secretly learning how to become animagi wizards who can transform into animals at will so they could safely keep him company during his transformations in the shrieking shack.
Because werewolves are only a danger to humans, not other animals.
Exactly. James became Prongs, a stag. Sirius became Padfoot, a large dog. Peter became Wormtail, a rat.
Wormtail, and Lupin tells the room, "I was watching the map tonight, and I saw Peter Pettigrew on the map."
Harry shouts that the map must be wrong, Peter is dead. But Lupin says, the map is never wrong.
And they all slowly look at Ron. Well, they look at what Ron is holding, the rat.
This is the huge pivot of the narrative. The madman Sirius Black isn't crying over his lost master Voldemort. He is crying over the betrayal of his best friends. He explains the switch. At the very last second, Sirius convinced James and Lily to use Peter as the secret keeper instead of him. He thought it was the perfect, brilliant bluff. Voldemort would come after Sirius, assuming he had the secret, but no one would ever suspect the weak, talentless Peter Pettigrew of holding such important information.
So Peter was the spy all along. Peter sold them to Voldemort.
Yes. And when Sirius realized what happened and hunted Peter down on that Muggle street, Peter outsmarted him. Peter yelled for the whole street to hear, "How could you betray Lily and James?" Then Peter blew up the street with his wand behind his back, cut off his own finger to fake his death, transformed into a rat, and disappeared down into the sewer with the other rats.
It is the absolute perfect frame job. Sirius looks guilty. Peter looks dead.
It really is. And Peter has been hiding in plain sight as a pet with a wizarding family, the Weasleys, for 12 years, sleeping in their beds, eating their food, just keeping an ear to the ground for any news that Voldemort might be returning.
It is so deeply disturbing when you think about it. Scabbers has been sleeping in Ron's bed for years.
It is incredibly violating. But the adults force the transformation to prove it. They hit the struggling rat with a spell. It hangs in midair, twists wildly, and lands on the floor as a short, balding, watery-eyed, extremely nervous man. Peter Pettigrew.
The proof is undeniable. He is missing a finger. He is alive. Sirius is entirely innocent.
Sirius and Lupin are completely ready to execute him right there in the shack. Lupin says, "You should have realized, Peter. If Voldemort didn't kill you, we would."
But Harry steps in front of Pettigrew. He stops them.
This is such a critical character beat for Harry. Harry violently hates Pettigrew. But he says, "I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I don't reckon my dad would wanted his 2 best friends to become killers."
It is mercy. He actively spares the traitor who orphaned him. He decides they should tie him up and hand him over to the Dementors at the castle instead, to clear Sirius's name legally.
Dumbledore later tells Harry this is a very deep, ancient kind of magic. When you save a wizard's life, you create a bond between you, a life debt. Pettigrew now officially owes Harry his life.
So they chain Pettigrew up between Ron and Lupin so he can't transform. They head back through the tunnel toward the castle. Sirius pulls Harry aside and asks if he wants to come live with him once his name is cleared. Harry is ecstatic. He is finally leaving the Dursleys. It feels like this incredible happy ending.
And then they step out of the tunnel. The clouds part. The full moon shines down brightly on the grounds.
Oh no! Lupin!
In the sheer excitement of seeing Peter Pettigrew's name on the map earlier that evening, Lupin ran out of his office and completely forgot to drink his potion. The Wolfsbane potion that Snape had been brewing for him, which keeps his human mind intact during the transformation.
He transforms, and this isn't the nice, gentle Professor Lupin anymore. This is a mindless, dangerous monster.
Sirius immediately transforms into the Black Dog to fight him, to physically grapple the werewolf and protect the kids. But in the utter chaos of the fight, Pettigrew lunges, grabs Lupin's dropped wand, hits Ron with a stun spell, transforms back into a rat, and vanishes instantly into the tall grass.
He got away. The living proof of Sirius's innocence is totally gone.
And it gets so much worse. Sirius is badly wounded from fighting the werewolf. He stumbles down toward the lake. Harry and Hermione follow him. And then the unnatural cold descends again. The Dementors have found them.
Not just one or two this time. A massive swarm of them coming across the lake.
Hundreds of them. They swarm Sirius. They are effectively eating his soul. Harry desperately tries to cast a Patronus, but he is too weak. He's too scared. There are too many of them. He feels the white fog clouding his brain. He hears his mother screaming. He collapses.
But just before he completely loses consciousness, he sees something, doesn't he?
Across the dark lake, he sees someone stand up and cast a Patronus, a massive, blindingly bright animal that charges across the water and drives all the Dementors away.
And Harry thinks he is absolutely convinced that the person who cast it was his father, James.
He says it later. He says, "It was him. I saw him." Even though rationally he knows his father has been dead for 12 years.
So he wakes up later in the hospital wing. Reality crashes down hard. Sirius has been captured. He is locked in the topmost tower of the castle. Minister Fudge has already summoned the Dementors to perform the kiss immediately.
There is going to be no trial. Fudge completely believes Black used dark magic to confuse the kids into thinking he was innocent. They're entirely out of time.
Enter Dumbledore. He comes into the hospital wing. He listens to their crazy story about Animagi and Peter Pettigrew. He actually believes them. But he says he has no power to override the Minister of Magic without proof. But then he gives a very specific hint. He looks at Hermione and says, "Miss Granger, 3 turns should do it."
And the massive revelation of the time turner. Hermione pulls a long gold chain from inside her robes with a tiny hourglass on it.
She has been using it all year just to attend multiple overlapping classes at once, which honestly is such a fundamentally Hermione thing to do. You give her a literal time machine, and she uses it to take extra arithmancy and muddle studies.
It perfectly fits her character. But now the stakes are life and death, not just grades. Dumbledore's instructions before he leaves and locks them in are incredibly precise. He says, "You must not be seen."
So Hermione throws the chain around Harry's neck, too. They spin the hourglass 3 times. The world blurs into a whirlwind of colors. They fly backward 3 hours into the past.
Now, we really need to talk about the specific mechanics of time travel being used here. In science fiction and fantasy, there are many different types of time travel. The multiverse theory, the butterfly effect where stepping on a bug changes the future. J.K. Rowling uses a strict closed loop, also known as a causal loop.
Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning they don't actually change the past, they fulfill it. Everything they do while traveling back in time had already happened the first time they lived through the evening. They just didn't see themselves doing it from their original perspective.
So earlier, when they were in the pumpkin patch and heard the swish and the thud of the axe.
That was the executioner, Buckner, swinging his heavy axe into the wooden fence in pure frustration because Buckbeak was already gone. Harry and Hermione from the future had already stolen him.
That is just brilliant, tight plotting. So they hide in the bushes near the forest. They watch their past selves go into Hagrid's hut. They untie Buckbeak and drag him into the woods. Then they wait in the trees for the whole werewolf fight to happen again.
And Hermione actually creates a distraction at a crucial moment. She mimics a wolf howl to lure the transformed Lupin away from attacking their past selves, which means she is the reason they survived the first time around.
And then Harry sneaks away to the edge of the lake. He's waiting. He is hiding behind a tree, watching the Dementors swarm Sirius and his past self on the opposite bank. He is waiting for his dad to arrive and cast the Patronus.
He's waiting for a magical savior. He's waiting for the powerful parent he lost to come back and fix everything.
But the minutes tick by, the lights are going out, the Dementors are winning, and nobody is coming.
And that is the beautiful, devastating realization. Harry says, "It wasn't my dad, it was me."
He steps out from behind the tree. He raises his wand, and this time he is not struggling to find a happy memory. He knows he can do it.
He tells Hermione later, "I knew I could do it this time because I'd already done it." It is a time travel paradox, yes, but more importantly, is a massive moment of supreme self-actualization. He summons the full corporeal Patronus, a blinding silver stag, prongs.
The stag is his father's animagus form.
Yes. So in a highly symbolic way, his father is there. Or rather, Harry carries his father's legacy and strength inside himself. He becomes the very protector he was desperately looking for.
He drives away 100 Dementors all by himself. It is an incredible, almost unheard of feat of magic for a fully grown wizard, let alone a 13-year-old.
It absolutely is. It firmly establishes him as a wizard of immense natural power.
So they fly Buckbeak up to the Dark Tower window. They blast the lock off. Sirius climbs onto the hippogriff. He tells Harry, "You are truly your father's son, Harry." And then he and Buckbeak fly away into the night sky.
He is free from the Dementors,
Yeah.
but he's still a wanted fugitive.
Yeah. They run back to the hospital wing just in time to see Dumbledore locking the door from the outside, successfully closing the time loop. Dumbledore is very pleased. But the aftermath the next morning isn't exactly a victory parade.
Not at all. Let's look at the scoreboard. Pettigrew successfully escaped to go find Voldemort. Sirius is still on the run and can't legally clear his name. Lupin has to resign in disgrace because Snape accidentally on purpose let slip to the Slytherins that Lupin is a werewolf. And Harry has to go back to the abusive Dursleys for the summer.
It is a really messy, somewhat depressing ending.
It's a realistic ending. The institutional system completely failed, the magical law was wrong, the innocent man is an outlaw in hiding, and the guilty man is walking free. But on a personal level, Harry won. He found out the truth about his family. He saved his godfather's soul from being destroyed.
And he finally got his Hogsmeade permission slip signed.
That is such a nice heartwarming touch at the very end. Sirius sends a letter via a tiny owl on the train ride home. He writes, "I, Sirius Black, Harry Potter's godfather, hereby give him permission to visit Hogsmeade on weekends."
And he also sends Ron a replacement pet, a tiny, incredibly hyperactive little owl that Ginny eventually names Pigwidgeon.
Which is a vast improvement over the murderous, middle-aged man who's secretly living in Ron's pocket for 3 years. Good trade.
But before we wrap up, we absolutely have to address the final lingering threat, Professor Trelawney. She made a real prediction during Harry's final divination exam, didn't she? And it wasn't her usual theatrical, fake stuff.
No, her eyes rolled back. She went into a genuine deep trance. Her voice became harsh and completely different. She prophesied, "The Dark Lord lies alone and friendless, abandoned by his followers. His servant has been chained these 12 years. Tonight, before midnight, the servant will break free and set out to rejoin his master."
And Pettigrew did exactly that. He broke free.
He did. And the terrifying conclusion of the prophecy is the Dark Lord will rise again with his servant's aid, greater and more terrible than ever he was.
That just sends an absolute chill down my spine. Harry's act of mercy saving Pettigrew from being killed in the shag is the exact thing that enabled Voldemort's return.
It did. It set the wheels in motion. But remember Dumbledore's parting words to Harry about it. He explicitly tells Harry not to regret showing mercy. He says that deep magic is at work. That life debt, that bond between Harry and Pettigrew might be absolutely crucial in the dark times ahead. But for now, the darkness is definitely gathering. The fragile peace of the last 12 years is officially over.
Wow. Okay, so when we step back and look at Prisoner of Azkaban as a whole piece of literature, what is the big takeaway for you listening at home? Why is this particular installment so often cited as the fan favorite?
I think it is because it deeply respects the reader's intelligence. It stops treating the audience like children. It says, look, the world is highly complicated. Good people, like Lupin, are treated as outcasts by society. Bad people, like Pettigrew, can look entirely harmless and pathetic. The government, represented by Fudge, cares way more about public image and staying in power than uncovering the actual truth.
And Harry isn't just a passive passenger in the story anymore.
No, he is highly active. He faces and masters his own deepest psychological fears. He actively chooses to show mercy instead of taking revenge. He comes to accept and carry their strength and their values forward. It is a beautiful, dark, highly complex coming-of-age story.
And it introduces the Marauders, who are just an endlessly fascinating dynamic.
Absolutely. The profound tragedy of that specific friend group, James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter. The deep love they had for each other, and the catastrophic betrayal that destroyed all their lives. It firmly anchors the whole series in a rich, tragic history.
It really does. Well, I think that leaves us with one final thought to mull over. We've talked a lot about Harry's growth, but consider Sirius. He spent 12 years in Azkaban, surrounded by Dementors, reliving his worst memory, knowing he suggested the switch that killed his best friends. Yet, the thought that kept him sane, the thought that gave him the power to transform and escape, wasn't a happy memory. It was an obsession. It was revenge. He survived the Dementors not through hope, but through a singular dark purpose. What does that say about the nature of survival in this world? It's something to really chew on.
That's a brilliant point. The line between light and dark gets very blurry.
It really does. Well, I think that is a perfect place to wrap it up for today. We have definitely managed some mischief.
Indeed, mischief managed.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep your wands at the ready, and we will see you for the next one.